So here we are. So it's a lovely bright Tuesday morning. It's start of autumn actually, which is great. So I'm here doing another series of sales conversations with sales experts. And third in the series, so I had my dad first in, then Alison Edgar did a brilliant job of sales conversations, sales experts. And the man that I've got with me today is someone I've known for quite a long time, but he's a real senior sales leader. A guy who I've worked with in the past, really good guy, good friend, someone that's achieved a lot of sales success. So I'm very pleased to say that my sales conversation with sales experts guest is Mr. Rami Houbby, who is the current VP of sales for international for Mitel, who are one of the world's largest telephone companies. So yeah, looking forward to getting Rami in seat. Rami, come and join me. How are you, my friend?
Very well, how are you?
I'm good. So we talked about this sales conversations with sales experts is all around you telling me about your sales career, everything you've done. So me and you've been friends for a long time, and but we've always had this love of sales and how sales operate. So I want you to obviously Rami's been a business leader and someone that's sold for a long period of time, and so we're just going to do a little bit of drive around, talk a little bit about your background, what you've achieved, how you've achieved the sales success you have, and just trying to have a general conversation, which is what I do with these things. So for those that don't know you, tell me a bit about, give us the Rami history potted background, basically, of where you are, because I know we always joke about this, but talk about how you got into business and then got into sales, basically.
Well, I got into business following a career in engineering, if you like. Got into business development as you would, if you're interested into business life. So following business development, and I got inspired by some of the sales leaders I worked with, and that's how I got into the science of selling. And I do call it a science because selling is about an engineering process, and how you excel at selling that's where an element of art comes in. So really it was inspired by sales leaders, and I got into this about 20 years ago. Yeah. And from selling high-tech to all sorts of organizations, starting with service providers, then went into enterprise sales, then back to service providers, and that's what today I do is selling to a combination of large corporates, mid-sized enterprises, and also a big part of what I do is telecom and carriers and service provider sales.
I want to talk about that a little bit as well in a moment when we have, and I know you think my driving's not the greatest, so I'm going to concentrate on the road. So you're a bit worried there, I know, but the point is we're going to talk through that, because I think you've obviously sold into very big organizations, and I want to tap into some of your insights around that. But just to give people a bit of an insight now, so obviously you're VP of sales for Mitel. If anyone's not watching this and doesn't know who Mitel is, 1 in every 4 phone systems in the UK, I think, and maybe worldwide, is a Mitel phone system. If they look on, maybe they're in their hotel, maybe they're at a Holiday Inn, or I know B&Q. If you go to the next time you go to B&Q and you see literally the phone system that B&Q are using, it's a Mitel phone system. Yeah. And you're the VP of international sales for that business, and that's their cloud business. So it's a big role, isn't it? It's a big responsibility for you to drive business for those guys.
It is an exciting role, I would say. I mean, I'm responsible for what we call the UCaaS, so which is Unified Communications as a Service. Yeah. So it follows the SaaS model of delivering what we call Unified Communications, which is essentially telephony plus a plethora of applications for making people's life easier. So in the workplace, increasing productivity, making people interact, collaborate in a seamless way. Ultimately, it's all about what we deliver is high productivity and high level of interaction within the organization, and it's also customers. Yeah. So my role is really to drive sales for this part of the business within what we call the international region, which is effectively EMEA and APAC. It is a big responsibility, but it's really exciting and inspiring, because we're really transforming the way people work. We are in empowering our customers to be more competitive, more productive, and really try and give them a competitive advantage in the market.
Yeah, and I know, obviously we'll talk a bit more about that role in a bit, but so just talk to me about your first, so obviously you mentioned that you were an engineer to start off with. What was your first ever sales role?
My first ever sales role was looking after, well, it was a transition from sort of a technical account management to more to a sales account management. And it was, typically in a sales role you start with an internal position and then you move up the ladder. But mine was, straight from within the account that I was looking after. There was a vacancy. The account manager left the organization, and I was, I said, well, I'll do the job, because I had very good relationships with the customer.
Was this at 3Com? Or was
it was at 3Com.
Yeah.
I had very good relationships with the customer that we were looking after. It was a big carrier, a service provider in the UK.
Yeah.
And the managing director at that point said, yes, take it on, take the challenge, and see how you do.
Yeah.
We, hopefully, I think I've delivered what I promised.
You did a good job, because you're obviously in the business 20 years later.
Exactly.
So you did well.
It was ultimately, it was an account management perspective. So it wasn't a new business straight away, but then we went on and acquired more service providers, and then we grew the team, and it became a very successful story.
Yeah.
I tell people, if you've got the passion for sales, go for it.
Yeah.
If you understand the sales process, if you take reward in seeing how you can impact customers' success, and that's something that drives you and makes you happy, then go for it.
And it's a great point, actually, because you say customer success is about the customer winning, and the best salespeople generally make sure the customer wins, and then they win as a result of that, isn't it? I guess, and it's you don't get many successful salespeople that just service their own needs and wishes and don't service the needs of their customers. So, but that's sometimes forgotten, really, because people think of sales being quite selfish, but actually the end result is about customers winning. If they win and you solve a problem for them or solve a want for them, then they're happy people normally.
Yeah, I always tell my customers, your success is my success. The way we help you become more competitive in the market, whether it's a service provider or it's a large corporate, that is ultimately impacting the way we deliver our services or our products. It has to be a win-win situation. It can't be, you're winning and they're losing. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that has to be transpired in the value proposition you articulate to the customer. Selling is about, when a customer looks at you as an organization, they want to see, you're capable of delivering what they're looking for. So it becomes, first, it's a feature discussion, its capabilities. Second, they look at what value you bring to the table. How's that gonna be received? How's it gonna be deployed within their organization? Third, they start looking at the price, right? They check out the price, the economics. Does it make sense? And fourth is they look at references.
Yeah.
So they don't want to be the first to try your products. They want to see, hopefully, like-minded customers or organizations that have utilized your services and products and deployed them successfully and are taking the benefits of your offering. So those four, if I call them pillars, are paramount to concluding a successful sales cycle.
Okay, and that's interesting. There's some lots of stuff we can pick up there in terms of the way you sort of approached it. But talk to me about how obviously your career. I know you did what you did at 3Com, and then you went off and did a number of other things, and we obviously worked together at Allied Teleson as well. And if you look at how you've built your career, what are the key sort of 2 or 3 things you've learned maybe over the course of your career that are really essentials? I know you mentioned some of them that's around, but was there anything specific you've learned, or was there anything someone told you? You mentioned some sales mentors and people you looked up to years ago, but was there anything great they told you thought that stuck with me for years?
So one of the things that I really valued was a discussion about, you know, approaching the customer, and it was about you know, educating the customer so ultimately they buy from you. So there is an education element. Sales is we've got to make that education piece. So I think that stuck in my mind. So everything you do, there has to be value add you bring to the table other than your product or service. There is an education piece.
Yeah.
So that really stuck in my mind, and you know, time and time I applied this. The other one is the if you like, that selling is not an art, it's a science. And you know, you can talk, there's an ongoing debate about, you know, best salespeople are people that know how to build relationships, and it's relationships and contacts and all that stuff. I'm a genuine believer that people don't buy from people because they know them. It's about the value proposition. It's about how they can impact their business, or how they can, you know, make them more competitive or more productive, or get them.
They've got to offer something.
Exactly.
You've got to be, and I agree. You know, you might have the best friend in the world, but unless you can make that person's life easier, unless you, and I always say to people only buy for two reasons, and I challenge anyone to say there's a problem or a want. Okay. Yeah. So if there's not a problem or a want, so the problem is they have an issue with this system X or whatever, and that's not working for them, or the want is they want to transform their business, they want to drive competitive advantage, they want to build.
I couldn't agree more. I hired salespeople that have, you know, excellent contacts and relationships, and tell you what, the result has been not really not being very productive, not very successful. It's really down to following the sales process, following the you know, making sure that you're impacting the customer's business, crystallizing your value proposition, articulating that value proposition, and making the impact. So, you know, it's exactly, you've got to have the demand, something that the customer needs and wants, and there is a compelling reason to conclude that transaction. But, you know, that is actually, you know, stuck in my mind, is not the network, is not the relationship. Yes, that helps, but that's not the core of selling.
It's really interesting you mentioned about the process. So I talk again to people a lot about sales being the process. Every business, you know, from some of the smallest ones to the biggest ones, have to have a process to work through, and the idea of being able to know where your prospect is in that process, to be able to identify, okay, they're at stage X or they're at stage Y, and how am I going to move them through to that next stage? And you mentioned the art of science there. Talk to me a bit more about what you mean by the sales being a science in your mind. Is it about how you know, people are able to you know, move their prospects through that, you know, from the buying process? Is that what you mean by the science, or is there anything in particular you mean when you think sales is a science?
Yeah, that's what exactly I refer to. It's that, you know, that's whole, you know, customer journey, if you like, which is now a big term in the industry. It's customer journey and customer experience. So how do you know, that has really well-defined stages, right? So, you know, 10 years ago, that wasn't well articulated and documented, and, you know, hundreds of books writing about, but it's always been that, right? So there is that, you know, process from the prospecting stage, where they are in that prospecting, if you like, funnel, how you move them in those stages, and what are the key what are the key indicators, what are the key signals, the buying signals that you need to detect. You know, that's all, you know, it's all out there, right? So you've got to follow that process, and if you don't follow that process, and you depend on, I don't know, gut feel, and depend on, you know, some sort of magic,
yeah,
it's just not going to happen.
It's such a great point, and it's like, and the thing you mentioned there, which I think is so important, is this element of buying signals and the ability to see and spot things in prospects. What are some of the key things that you've used when you sort of, like, you know, when people talk about buying signals? What would you say are indications of buying signals, that when you've heard those words, or that seeing customers or prospects do things, you think, right, I know I'm onto something here?
Yeah, so it's really, it comes down to the level of interaction from the customer. So when you're saying, you know, that level of interaction, the traffic, if you like, coming from the customer,
yeah,
as the traffic increases, that means they're spending more time with you, right? So that's more time, that's more airtime, there's more bandwidth from their point or from their side towards you. That's a good buying signal.
Yeah.
They are engaged.
Yeah.
You know, they suddenly talk about, you know, can I have a look at your T's and C's?
Yeah.
that's a strong buying signal.
Yeah.
They're still negotiating the price. They're still telling you that there is a competitor in the mix and you've got to sharpen your pencil and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you've got, they're talking T's and C's. That's a good buying signal. That's a strong buying signal. They talk to you about a board meeting that they're making a recommendation to.
Yeah.
That's a strong buying signal. You've got to be able to pick those signals and formulate a strategy. How you're going to position yourself, how you're going to respond, how you're going to help them position you in front of the board. So there are all these dynamics that are happening within the account that you've got to be able to spot and react to in a structured way.
Yeah, and you're right, and it's so important to be able to do this and to do it in the right way, and to be in a position where you can spot those signals. I think you also mentioned around some elements there around how to sort of know when people are engaged in the engagement itself. And one of the things I unfortunately see with quite a lot of companies is that they feel like they're having a sales conversation, or they feel like they've got an opportunity, but I ask them, all right, when was the last time you spoke to the prospect? Oh, it was 3 weeks ago. All right, when was the last time you had an email from them? Oh, well, they don't communicate on email. So it's like, okay, so you're putting all your eggs into this basket whereby you've not heard from it. It's like, come on, guys. It's like a prospect that's not engaging with you is not a prospect that's going to do business with you anytime soon, unless something changes in their mindset.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I look at sometimes, in some of the sales guys, not where I'm working now, but in other organizations, come to you and say, well, I've got this opportunity and it's in the commit. So when was the last time you spoke to the customer? Well, 4 weeks ago. But why is this particular opportunity in the commit? Well, it's based on information that's 4 weeks old. That can't be right. So you've got to be able to distinguish, what's again back to the interaction piece, right, and the communication with the customer. I mean, sometimes you get into the last month of the quarter and you still got in your funnel uncommitted deals.
Yeah.
Those are never going to happen. Uncommitted deals in the funnels in your third month in the quarter. That's not pipeline. That's forecast, right? That needs to be in the next quarter or the quarter after. So that pipeline management is so critical to the sales process, I think.
So this is really interesting, actually. So you obviously now, but a lot of people that will watch this will be at different stages. Some of them will be smaller businesses that have got maybe just doing it themselves. Other people will be maybe sales managers that have got teams like you've got. And I remember, we both knew Shane Buckley, for example, in 3Com, who, I talk to people a lot about. Shane was very much driven on the forecast of what you could achieve. But actually sales success is about being able to know what's going to happen when and how, and to be able to predict. How do you, obviously you've got methods, and I know when we, and we'll talk a little bit about what you built up with Enfom, but, a lot of sales people worry about being able to forecast things, and they only worry if they don't know their client, right?
Yeah. Well, the only way to have a increase your level of certainty is get closer to the customer.
Yeah.
The closer you are, the higher your certainty or probability of closing the deal. And knowledge is key, really. Knowledge is king. Understanding the dynamics of the account. That's how you can, predict what's going to happen, right? I mean, obviously we don't get everything right. There's always an element.
Well, I do.
Yeah, but seriously, I mean, there are situations where logic says this is how it's going to pan out, but in reality it doesn't, right? And it's just the nature of the beast. But if you're close to the customer, you understand the dynamics, you understand the competitive landscape in the account and what's going on. There's an incumbency position, the existing supplier dynamics, the partner involved if you're selling through partners, if you're a channel driven organization, and the bidder's position. That's really key. There is intelligence around this, right? So there's the competitive intelligence that you can take and digest, and then based on all of these factors, you've got to formulate a strategy, right? And that's why I say it's scientific, because it's not guesswork. It's absolutely not guesswork.
Yeah. It's a great point, and I want to talk about, because you obviously have built a huge successful career in selling into the carrier space. So for anyone that's looking at carriers, are big telecoms operators. I know you've had incredible success in selling into those type of organisations. And the reason this is important is because those deals tend to be very big. They tend to be very big by their nature because, let's be fair, BT and Virgin and the big carriers don't buy one or two of things.
No,
they generally tend to buy thousands of things. So actually, those deals can take a lot longer to work and achieve, but when you do get them, they're very, very successful. Talk to me, anyone that's looking at this that sells into a business-to-business environment that maybe has a sales cycle that's longer. What you mentioned around you get to know the account, you get to know the dynamics of what's happening. What else have been your key factors in selling into big organisations like that?
It's these sales cycles can take not months but years, really, and we've experienced this right from the start. When, as I said, I entered into the sales world from 3Com days. We were selling to cable operators at that point, and we were getting into the first, if you like, stages of offering internet over cable TV. The selling, if you're selling to organizations that are really complex organizations, large, such as service providers, why does the sales cycle take a long time? And we've got to understand why, right?
Yeah.
And because there's whatever you're selling and the product impacts so many sub-organizations or departments and touches many different people within the organizations. So those people have to come together in some sort of a framework to agree to buy from you, right? And it's about bringing all these different people, and they all got this different stakeholders have got their own agendas, their own interests, and to make an ultimate buying decision, they've got all their interests to be aligned. So bringing this alignment is a complex matter between these different departments that have got their different agendas, and obviously there's politics involved. So, and that's why it's a complex environment. My advice to people getting into
that type of
sales cycle is really to connect with the various stakeholders, understand their pain points, understand their raison d'être, of each department, not the whole company. You've got to go to the micro level and understand the stakeholders' pains and start addressing those one at a time. And then once you started addressing them, then you've got to draw the alignment between these different pain points. And obviously there are, when you're selling to large organizations, if they're on a particular procurement framework, you've got to have the if you like, all
the boxes ticked.
So that's given, but there is that other piece of work that has to go through, and that's obviously you're applying the sales process on all these different methodologies to get to that level of alignment between the different stakeholders.
And it's such amazing advice in terms of being able to align people and herding cats together in those areas.
Sometimes wet cats as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the other key thing for me here is, and I want to talk to you about one of the other deals that I know you did, which was the biggest cloud telephony deal that was ever done in the UK, which I think is a huge contributor. That's why I wanted you in the car talking about this stuff. Just talking about those big. Did you ever find in those big accounts there was always one or two key decision makers that, whilst you had to get everyone involved, you needed person X and Y really on your side, or because the decision-making process of those types of organisations, I was talking to people about actually trying to put yourself in control of the decision, but it's difficult when there's so many people involved. What did you do to actually try and, was there ever one or two people you said, right, I know I've got to engage with person X and person Y, whether it's an executive, or how did you pick one or two people out, or was it a case of just trying to get everyone on board?
Well, that particular deal you mentioned, it was from the outset, we've understood who were the decision makers.
Yeah.
The stakeholders were about a dozen people. Right. We understood who were the key decision makers, and there were two guys, but they were the most negative in our first interaction.
Right. Okay.
From the outset, so we've identified that they were the decision makers, but they weren't. Let's say enthusiastic.
And were they directors, or were they seen? They obviously had a senior role in that business.
Yeah, they were directors in the business.
Yeah,
and they were driving the project because they were ultimately the beneficiary of the project. All the other stakeholders were from different departments, but they had to all come together to sanction, if you like, the deal.
Yeah.
But we've identified who were the key decision makers. There were 2 individuals, and they were the least enthusiastic about our offering and our positioning. We were kind of a startup, if you like, in this world, in the UK market.
Yeah.
Trying to bid for a multi-million pound offering, one of the largest cloud telephony deals in the UK that particular year, in the public sector, and you're an unknown entity.
Yeah.
So
hard work. You have to win a business. That's what I mean. I won't tell you the name of it, but can we tell the name of it? I mean, probably.
I think
it was
we should.
you should.
It's a big borough. It's a big borough, I think, in London, and it's so
when you were at Enfone, when you ran Enfone. So Rami ran. He's too humble to probably say it. Rami started. There was a telephony business called Enfone, and Rami started that business in the UK and drove it to turnover of how many millions a year were you turning over?
Well, we got to £5 million.
5 million turnover. So from 0 to 5 million, I think that's a pretty bloody good achievement, incredibly. And one of those key factors was the deal that you did with this London borough, which was the biggest, wasn't it, for cloud telephony?
It was the biggest in the UK for that year as a public cloud, but also was obviously the biggest for the company, for Enfone as a group. It's a German entity, but as a group, it was the biggest deal ever made in the company. And it's coming from this background as a startup in the UK, how do you approach this? Yeah, great technology, great proposition, but how do you actually, convince people that you've got the ability to deliver value for them? Yeah, and it was really hard work, very very hard work, and it's really I bring it back to the team, to the people that were working with me on the deal, how we packaged. We've really spent days understanding the pain points. I got you in a room one day, remember? Say, what would be the obstacles? What would be the objections here? How can we, navigate this? And we've identified all the pain points. We've identified the objections we're going to come across, and the team pulled together. It was all about preparations. So for a 2-hour meeting, we prepared more than over probably a month work. So hours and days and nights to get to that, to prepare for the 2-hour meeting, to the 2-hour pitch. And I tell my team today, if you've got a customer call, even if it's 10-minute call, spend the time to prepare. So even if you spend 2 hours for a 10-minute call, preparation is everything.
It's so important. I did a video yesterday when I was talking around actually people having their first meeting. I'm going to go, we've got a few minutes actually, and this has been good. I know your time, this is near where I used to live in Reading. This is like down memory lane for me at the moment. But
I've got to drop off my son as well.
I know. We're going to head back. So I'm going to head back. But just to. This is all coming back to me living up in this area of the neck of the woods. It's great, but so no. Look, you mentioned about preparation. It is so important. Preparation is everything when it comes to sales, and actually having when you engage with someone that tries to sell to you and they're not prepared, what do you think? You just think you're an amateur. I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah, I think they first of all they don't respect you.
Yep.
If you're not prepared, you lose that respect, and again, part of the, if you like, buying cycle, you've got to build the trust and respect.
Yeah.
People, go on a lot about trust, but I think respect is equally important, and you gain respect not just by leaning over backwards and delivering everything, is actually by challenging the customer's assumptions, challenging the customer's understanding of what their needs are, challenging the status quo. That's how you gain respect.
Do you know what? I love these sessions because I learn from it as well, and it's a word that I've not used in some of the sales work that I do with helping people get better at sales, and that's respect. And it's so right actually. But I do talk to people. It's a mutual thing. They've got to be able to. If you're subservient to them, it's never going to work. Actually,
no, it's never going to work. And I see this when in people trying to sell me stuff, right? As a consumer, mind you, I tend not to buy anything these days. Outsource the whole thing.
Yeah.
But seriously. When you start saying the salesperson, leaning over backwards, you know, they lose their respect.
Yeah.
And once they've lost their respect, then that, you know, whole transaction becomes risky, in my view.
Yeah. Because they're too desperate for it.
They're too desperate for it. And
yeah.
once you sense desperation, when customers sense desperation, that's when the deal is completely at risk. So, you know, to gain trust, gain respect of the customer, challenge the status quo, and educate the customer so they can eventually buy from you.
Awesome. Look, I mean, I know we're coming to the end of the session. Thank you, mate. It's been great, and I love, you know, it's listening to your, you know, I know we worked, and I know you've been incredibly successful from a sales perspective. Any sort of final tips for anyone watching this that's maybe a little bit new to sales, or, you know, that sales they find maybe challenging? Any tips you'd give them? 2 or 3 tips, you know, quick tips that would say, but like, you know, if you're new to this, these are the things to do as a basics to be successful in sales like you've been.
Well, I think is follow the sales process.
Mm-hmm.
Be diligent about a process. If you're a business owner, get Jimmy in.
Thank you, mate. That's right. I didn't ask for that, but that's good to have. That's good.
But seriously, get Jimmy in to build that process for you. And that process, then you can apply and get your teams to apply new hires. And I'm so keen on getting sales process documented for the salespeople. So everybody is aligned. You have a methodology that you follow in your business, and that's where you can scale, and that's how you become successful. It's not guesswork, it's science.
It's not guesswork, it's science. What a brilliant way to finish the conversation. Look, my friend, thank you.
Most welcome.
Rami is an absolute business legend, a friend of mine, and he's done this on an incredibly busy schedule while he's got to take his son to school, who is a top lad as well, Tarek. So, but look, it's been really great. Thanks for watching. This is my 3rd episode of Sales Conversations with Sales Experts. I've really enjoyed the session with this man here, VP of Sales for Mitel. So he's got to a senior role, knows what it is to sell. He's been great. If you want to sit in the chair with Rami, or with Rami, where Rami was, then and you're a sales expert, you've got a similar sort of role, then I'd love to have you in the chair sharing your sales expertise and knowledge. Mate, thank you very much.
Most welcome.
Have
thank
a good
you very
day
much for
and
listening.
enjoy.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.